Hey guys, J&D Projects here. Today we're going to be making a sheath out of leather, and going to be making a sheath for this knife right here. This is my Mora knife, and we all have one, but this one's mine. And I love Mora knives. I like Mora knives, but I've never cared for the sheath. These hard plastic sheaths. Yeah, I get it. There's a lot of advantages to them, but I've just never cared for them. And so, you can see how this is discoloring here where I've carried it on my belt. And, that's weakening that plastic there. So, I know several people like them, and that's great. But for me, I think I want something different. And so we're going to make a leather sheath. Now, the knives we make sheaths for all of them, and so each one's a little bit different because we tailor our sheaths to the customer, whoever that may be, and also to fit the style of knife that we're making. And so I think what I'm going to do is a simple fold over, but I think I'm going to try doing a little bit different work down here at the bottom of the sheath. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a center line on this, and then I'm going to measure over from that center line. The center line is going to basically be the back of the sheath. So then the sheath looks like this. The center line is actually a line that goes right there, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking this leather that I then use this pattern to transfer this pattern to, and it's going to fold over, and I'm going to stitch it on this side to make the sheath. So this center line is actually the back spine of the sheath. So everything is kind of done relative to that to keep it all symmetrical. Now I'm going to come over 3/8 of an inch and make a guideline. Now each one of these little squares is a quarter, so if I come over 1.5 squares, that's 3/8 of an inch. And so I'm just going to put a line here. This is just a guideline, so I may not make it as dark as I made the other line. Okay, and that's going to be the line that I want to lay my knife on. Now I'm going to lay my knife down about like this, because it got kind of a camel back on this knife, on this handle. And so normally if the handle was just straight, I would line this little guideline I made up right with the spine of the knife. But since I have this thing has a camel back on it, I'm going to kind of come over and put the actual top of that camel back onto that guideline. And now I'm going to sketch out, or trace out, I guess, the shape of this knife. Now all I need to do is get something that looks that's fairly close to the shape. It doesn't have to be like exact, but it should be very representative of what the knife looks like. So excuse me. So I think this will do the trick. So there's my knife. Okay, now several important things for the reason why we do this like this is because this knife has got a lot of different shapes on it. Okay, first of all, it's kind of got this clip point. It's got the almost like a guard or swell here where the blade comes out of the handle. It has the camel back. Okay, so trying to recognize all of that, and these points are going to be very important as we go along. Now I'm probably going to come down about 3 fingers. I don't think I need to be any higher than that. In fact, I think I might come down just a little bit further. I may come down to right there. So there will be the top of the sheath. and I'll probably come up 3 and make that, there's the back, and I'll finish. This is going to be a kind of a, I'm going to put kind of a curve here on this. As you can see, there's kind of a curve already, as you can see on the old knife, and so I kind of like that. I kind of like that shape, and so I'm going to do something similar there. So just some guidelines right now. Thing I really want to measure out next is the welt. Now the welt is a little piece of leather that fits between the 2 faces of the sheath leather, and it's where the stitches go. And so this welt, as it is called, I believe it comes from the word welt comes from the old shoemaking business. It's like a piece of leather that's between the lower and the upper pieces on a shoe sole. I don't know much about making shoes, but I think that's where that came from. If John was down here, he would be able to tell you the exact history of the word and everything like that, but he's not. In fact, I'm alone today, so it's just D, not D and J. He's actually doing school right now, so he has to be off on that. So I am flying solo. And so we haven't put out many videos recently for a couple of reasons. It's been a crazy time in our family. There's been a lot of illness, and my wife is struggling with I don't know, it's what do you call it, bone problems in her knee. Don't know exactly what's going on there, so that's been a bit of a struggle here recently, and so we have not made many videos. We just finished up the video on the 7th part on the restoration of the bellows, and that was really a tremendous effort. And so all these things combined has just kind of put us behind in getting some videos and content made, but we hope to fix that in the future here. So at any rate, what I did was I marked a 3/8 inch spacing between the edge of the welt, which I'm drawing in right now, and the knife blade itself. Now I said 3/16. The reason why I'm giving that little hedge room there is because it gives some wiggle room for the knife to go in. It's not so tight that you can't get it in and out, and it's not so loose that it's going to wiggle around in the sheath. So it's just a little bit of clearance for the blade to go in, but yet it's still tight enough that it ends up securely holding the blade. Now, I'm bringing that welt up on this back side, and the reason why I'm doing that is, again, because we have this clip point. And so we're going to see about maybe putting in a little split here where the sheath actually kind of curves in on both sides at the bottom. Now, some people call that a butterfly. I don't know. You'll see it in just a minute. The edge of the welt, the other side of the welt, is going to be a 1/2 inch from the so the welt is going to be a 1/2 inch thick, is what I'm trying to say. I don't talk and work at the same time very well, and so without a script, and we've never made scripts so far. I don't know, maybe we should script out our videos before we start. Maybe that would make them a little more maybe that would make them better. I don't know. It doesn't seem like I have time to write a script and do a video. I barely have time to do the video, it seems like, sometimes here or lately, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see about that. There's something about being extemporaneous that's good and bad. Okay, now I'm going to go on ahead before I go any further with this, and I'm going to go on ahead and connect these dots. So now you can see this welt is starting to take shape. So what I'm drawing now is the contour of the outside of the sheath. Okay, so this is the I'm not done drawing the welt yet, but here's the part that I've got done already. So the stitching is going to go here. When we put the two pieces together, the stitching will go right here. And as you can see now, the knife blade is not going to get to the stitches to cut them, because the inside part of that welt is going to keep that from happening. Okay, let me go ahead and come up on this side, 1/2 inch over. I'm not sure. I don't know if I really have enough room to do this or not, but I'm going to give it a try. Okay, so right about there. Okay. So we're going to come down, and let me go on ahead and put a 1/2 inch mark here so I can have at least something to shoot for. Okay, so here is basically the bottom part of the sheath, and now the welt I will cut off right here now. Don't need to go up any further than that. Okay, all right, so here is the rough form of our welt. Okay, so far. Okay, now let's see what happens up here. What do I want to do up here? I think what I'm going to do is I am going to measure how this little swell comes out. I need to recognize that, and because I want the welt to go all the way up, but the welt cannot actually follow the contour of this handle, because if it did, we wouldn't be able to get the knife in and out. So I'm going to have to measure again my 3/16, and I will be able to, now I'll just bring, so here is that part of the welt. And what I want to do is I basically want to mirror that out here. So let's see. Okay, there we go. All right, now I'm going to just come straight up here. And I will just come straight up here. Okay, so here is the top. Now I've got the welt completely lined out. Okay, and now I want to fool around with what my top's going to look like. Now I can do a couple of things here. I'm going to just play around for just a second. You know, I could just, let me get my French curve here. You know, I could just do something like that, where I just put in a, like that, or I could make it a little more, could make it like this. You know, I kind of like that. I think that kind of looks like the, it looks a lot like the original. Although I'd like that to be a little more off center. So I think what I'm going to do is not do it exactly like this, but I do like this idea. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put kind of a sharp, let's see, and the good thing about this this French curve is you can kind of, you know, again, you can push it around and twist it around on the page and kind of get an idea of what your of what maybe your you know, your design would look like before you actually commit. So let's see, I think I'm going to do this. Although I'd like that to be just a little more. Let me try this. Let me do this. I want to kind of put a guideline in here like that. And then I want to put something. I definitely want it to be off center like that. Now let's soften the curve. Let's soften those edges with the French curve. So let's see, this may work better like this. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. So what if I did something like this? That starts it out. And then we bring it on down like this. Like that. Okay, now let me get rid of these guidelines here. Okay, so here's the back. And then let's get rid of this. Okay, now I've got to bring my welt on up now because I didn't bring it up high enough, so let's extend that on up. So now we have our welt in. All right, so there is the basic outline of the sheath. Now, I've got to do something else, and I've got to now copy this onto the other side. And the way I like to do it, I know other people do it differently. Some people, they flip it over. They first of all divide it at the center line. Like that. And then they flip it over. Well, no, I guess they leave it like that. And then they hold it up to a light. And I don't have any lights with me. Yeah, I do. Got my phone here. They hold it up to a backlight. And you're probably not going to be able to see this because of my lighting. But then they make kind of a light box out of it. If I turn off these lights, you should be able to see it. Maybe. No, it's still too light in here. Well, any rate, you can put a backlight on it and do it that way, but I don't care to do it that way. So I've always done it this way. So I'm going to show you. What I do is I flip this around the other way, like this. Now here's the front of the sheath, because this is for a right-handed person, so this is the front. Okay, what I do is just take and cut along the outside of the sheath. Okay. I guess I'm not in camera, am I? Okay. So here we go. Now, once I get this cut out, I'm not lapsing any of the work here. I just wanted to show you how I do this. Like I said, there's probably 100 different ways to go about making a sheath knife or a sheath for a knife. I'm not sure that my way is the best. In fact, I know it probably is not. But it is the way that I do it. So it'll be at least. So now notice when we open this up now, we have a perfect pattern now to sketch out onto the leather. Now, there's one more piece here that this is where the problem comes in for doing it the way that I do this, because we've got to have another piece of paper here. We grab it here. Okay. Now, because if I just made this right now, yeah, we would be able to put the knife in it, and that would be great. But the problem is, how are we going to attach it to the belt? We need a belt loop. And so I like to make my belt loop material integral with the sheath itself. And so after I get this thing cut out, what I do is get another piece of paper, and I come over and I just trace the top part of the sheath. I don't need much more than that. Okay. Now, what I like is I kind of like my belt loop to come in kind of right behind the knife. So I'm going to start, right about there. Now I'm close enough to that one edge. I may just, no, I think I'm going to keep it there. I'll keep it there. Okay. Now, different people make their belt loops different widths. I kind of like, I feel like an inch is too small, but like an inch and a quarter is too wide. And I'm not sure I'm really happy with it, but I kind of go with an inch and an eighth. That's kind of always what I've done. So now I'm just going to put in a couple of lines. Now, the back of the sheath, when I cut this out, it's going to have this tab. And that tab then is going to fold down behind, and I'll stitch it, and that's what's going to make the actual belt loop. Now, do a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to come up about an inch, okay? And then I want to have a belt loop that's about, I don't know, 2 1/4, 2 1/2. So there's 1, 2 1/4. I think I'm going to go on ahead and make it 2 1/2. No, I think I'll keep my 2 1/4. Okay, so that basically is going to be how much of a belt loop area there's going to be on this knife. Okay. Now, it gives plenty of space. There's going to be a little bit of a hump here. As you can see, it's going to look something like this, except it's going to be much closer to the top of the sheath. So this point right here is going to move way down. Okay. And then I want to put in I'm going to put in a circle, and then that circle, I'm going to use my template, and I will probably go want to be about even there. Okay, and then I'm going to put in where I'm going to cut this thing off. Okay, so now I just have to cut this out, and I'm going to tape it on, and then I'll be right back with you. No sense in you watching that too. Be back in a minute. Okay, guys, I got this tab added on. All I did was just trace it out and cut it, and then tape it to the back of the sheath. Just to keep things, systematic, I always make my sheaths, when I draw them out, I make them for a right-handed, you know, I draw out the knife and all that on this side, and I make that the right hand. And that way I always know, because it's so easy to get confused on this. And so I just do it the same way every time, so that if on occasion I have to make a left-handed sheath, all I have to do is flip this over and I've got a left-handed sheath. So that's how I keep things straight. And so we're going to make a left-handed sheath today. And this is a pretty historic situation, honestly, because I don't normally make anything for myself. I'm always making for other people. So this will be kind of a new experience for me. Okay. All right, but there is the outline of the sheath. Now I'm going to go on ahead and put, as you can see, I've put two little tick marks there and there. And the reason why I did that is because when I fold this down, I'm folding it down to that line. Okay, well, maybe. Okay, so that's how far down I want to come. Okay, so on the back of the sheath when I stitch this on. Okay, and so I'm going to go on ahead and just kind of put two little tick marks right here, and that way it reminds me that I need to come down. Where's my ruler at? I need to come down this far, and I'm not going to come all the way over. I'm just going to put a little light line right there, because now whenever I get this all cut out, I can bend that down to there, and I know exactly how far down to go. Lots of different ways to do this. This is what I use. Just use a box knife. There are special leather tools that you can get to cut leather like this, and I just use the box knife because it works well for me. It's cheap, and I can always have a sharp blade because they are very easy to replace, and they're cheap to replace. And that's something that is important to me, is cost. And we have this cut out. Now, if we fold this over, I think you can see how this is going to come together to form our sheath. Still have to cut the welt out, okay? And I'm going to have to use my I'll have to use my template to do that with, okay? And so I guess I should probably go on ahead and get that done now. Let me grab my leather. Okay, so I've got lots of different pieces of leather laying around, and so what I try to do is to find a place that I can cut this out and use the least amount of material in the process, because, you know, thing about it is this leather's not free. Okay, it's actually quite costly. So now how am I going to do this? Because what I want is I just want to do this welt. Well, I guess I better get better into the camera. Okay. All right. So how am I going to do this? It's going to be hard to trace this thing. I mean, you know, I can trace the outside. That's easy peasy, right? So I'm going ahead and do that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a little awl, and I'm going to make some dots. Punch through along the line, and when I'm done, all I have to do is connect the dots. So there's the welt. We'll have now this is where the welt will go. Okay. Now, I didn't mention it, but I knew that down here was going to be a problem. So what I need to do now is kind of figure out how to cut this welt. And it looks to me like I can cut it right about here. Okay. All right. Now that's going to fit there. Okay. But we still kind of have a problem of, for instance, when I bring this over, it's still kind of congested right here because that welt's kind of thick, and it's stopping just like that. Makes that, you know, thick edge here that you have to overcome. And I really didn't account for it here. I had this come up very tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something called skiving. Now, I'm using the skiver I'm going to use is this. It's a fairly cheap one. There's much better ones on the market, but yeah, we've already talked about my cheapness. What a skiver does is it lets you just take off a very thin amount of leather, but notice what's happened. I've got a nice bevel there. You see that? And that's what I want to do here. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to bevel this thing down. Like so. And now when I put this on, notice it is going to fit much better. There's not nearly the, and look, you see how it's just going to go right down to I may need to cut this back just a little bit further. Okay. And when I fold this over, again, it's kind of hard to do this without. But notice now, you see how that kind of just fits real well there now, and there's not a big bulge. And do this one the same way. And let me go on ahead and do that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I tend to do what I think looks good or would look good, you know. So now, whenever we bring these two pieces together up here, we're going to have kind of the same situation. You see how that's going to go down like that? And I think that looks a lot better. Okay. All right. So let me go on ahead and take a couple of quick measurements here. So I'm probably going to stop it there. Okay. Line this up. Okay, and I'll put a mark over here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my edger, and I'm going to edge all this area right here. Okay. Now I'm going to do the outside. Find my marks again. All right. Now, we need to, the next thing I need to do is to get this belt loop tacked on, okay? But before I do that, I need to go on ahead and burnish all of this, because I won't be able to do any of that once I get that sheath made or laid out for you. So here we are. And here's the knife, and I will be back with you in just a minute. Okay, I'm back finally. It's been probably instant for you guys, but it's been a day for me. So here was the sheath that you actually watched me cut out, along with the welt. Now, the problem is that, you know, when I make my knives, I make my handles just a little bit differently. And this one is just, it's a little wider right here. And I noticed that when I put it practiced into my sheath here, you know, that is just probably right at just enough space to get that welt in there. In fact, I'm not even sure really that the welt will fit completely and we can get everything all stitched up. So what I did was I just increased the size just a little bit and I recut it out. So I just wanted y'all to see if you notice that there was a little bit of a difference between the patterns here. That's what's happened. I just recut it a little bit larger. And so now I'm going to put this off, and so this isn't lost. We'll make a knife that'll fit that one of these days, and we've got a sheath for it. Okay, so we're going to continue on with this one. Get this pattern out of the way. All right, now one of the things that we need to do next is to go on ahead and get the belt loop and this top edged. Now I think before I do that, I want to work just a little bit, because like right here you can see there's a little bit of an angle there. I like to have my edges straight, so I'm going to trim this just a hair before I begin, just to make it so that I have a little bit of a trouble keeping my edges straight when I cut. Like I said, we're not the best leather workers in the whole world. But there is that, and I may just do just the slightest trimming right here, and that will straighten that up. Now I'm not too worried about the rest of the knife right now, as you'll see, because I'm just going to take that I'm just going to take, whenever I get the welt put in, I'll just go to the belt grinder. And so I don't have to worry about this part down here. This part up here I do have to worry about, because I won't be able to belt grind that part, because once I get the sheath formed, again, that's going to be inaccessible to me. So I need to get this done now. Okay. So again, I'm just taking a little bit of time here and trimming this up. Once again, it's all because when I did my original cutout, my knife was kind of held to the side. Okay, so now let's go through and let's put, because now we'll get this thing on here like this. So here's where the welt goes, and I will push this down like this. And so now I can kind of see where I need to bring my trimming. Okay, I'll mark this. So I want to probably trim from there all the way around to there. Okay, again, this bottom part here along the edge of the sheath will get dressed when we get it all glued up. Now I'm going to go on ahead and burnish this. So I have some water here, and I am going to begin right here. And notice how I'm just going to take and wet this edge. Again, I'm using water. A lot of people use other things, other agents than what I'm using. But like I said, it's cheap and it works well for me, so I'm comfortable with it. As you can see, I'm getting a nice color on the edge there. You can see a very distinct difference between what I've burnished and what I have not burnished. Okay, I'm going to keep on doing this, just like this. Now, I don't see any point in making you sit around for me going all the way around. I'm just going to do the same thing and go all the way around, and I'll be back with you. Okay, got that all done. So, got this edge all burnished down. Okay, now I'm going to do a little more work on this belt loop here, because remember, this is the outside of the sheath. When we make it, it'll look like this. Here's the back of the sheath, and this I'm going to fold over like so. Now, as you can see, the animal side of the leather is exposed here. So what I normally do in this case, now John prefers to go like this, and that's not a bad way to go, except I really didn't have enough leather to do that, so I'm going to go this way with it this time. Okay, that's a very common way to do that. Now I'm going to go on ahead though and burnish this side a little bit, and all it's going to do is smooth it down so that when I stain it, it doesn't look so rough. Now, it's not going to be perfect. I mean, you're going to be able to tell it's kind of the rough side of the leather, but it is going to look, it's not going to be quite as rough. This other sheath. So here's an example. Of course, it's not cut long enough, but nonetheless, here's an example of what this would look like. You see the finished side is outside. No problem. Looks great. Okay. Now, over here, when we do this, okay, I'm going to be putting this like this. In fact, that's our next step. In fact. Now, as you can see, when I stain this down now, it's going to look a lot better than if I don't do anything at all. Okay, so that's why I do this, is that it gives it just a little more of a dressed finish on the outside. Okay, and it lets me get away with using a shorter tang for the belt loop. Okay, now we got to figure out how to put this belt loop on, and what I like this mat I've got here. It's just a hobby and craft mat, and so what I'll do is I line up one edge. I think I'm going to do the top edge. I line up one edge with the leather here with one of these white marks, these white lines. I don't know, maybe I'll go with the bottom one. Okay. Then I take a ruler and need to have a knife handy or a pencil handy. Okay. All right. And now what I do is I line my ruler up with each side of the white line. So I'll put it on the white line on this side, put it on the white line on this side. And now when I bend this over, I know I'm going to have it straight. I think I'm going to go back with the, I've started doing this using a circular stitching back here. So I think I will find all right. I think I'll use that circle there. And I'm going to mark this. Okay, so it's nice and dark, and I think you should be able to see that. Okay. Now, I'm going to go around this with a stitch. Now, well, I do know I've done this before, and it works pretty good. It's just kind of tedious. And you're constantly turning this thing. I know you probably can't see through my hand, but boy, there is absolutely nothing I can do about that. Okay, get that back in that hole there. Come on around. Maybe you can get the sense of what I'm doing right about now. Okay, now it's kind of hard to see these, so I'm going to put an awl mark, use an awl, and mark them a little more deeply so that I can see them when I go to the drill press. Okay, got that done. You can see the holes there. Now, the thing is though, is that we have to put holes down here too, on the sheath itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this in place, and I'm just going to lightly mark this. Okay, so I've got the camera repositioned. I have the sheath locked in the vise, and I have made, it's going to be, I don't know if I can show you this whole thing right here, but I'm using artificial sinew, and I just have put a needle on each side of the thread. So there's a needle on each side. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, let's see here, which way do I want to make this work here? Let me go through here first. So I'm just going to start with a hole, and I'm going to go through. Now, given the position and everything, I'm going to have to probably use a pair of pliers to pull the needle through. And I want to sort of get this half and half, so the thread is even on each side. I'm going to call this artificial sinew thread. Okay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back through the next hole. Okay. It's kind of hard to see from my angle that I'm at. There. Now, I'm going to come back through this hole that's adjacent to it, and I'm going to have now kind of a little loop. Now, I'll take the thread, the other piece of thread, and I'm going to bring it back through that same hole. Okay, but here's the little trick. Okay, I'm going to wrap it around I'm going to wrap this loop, one side of it, around the needle, and then push on through. Okay, oh, sorry. And then pull it tight. All right, now okay, so we are definitely recording, and all we do is this if you've never used contact cement before, it's very, very gooey. So you just have to get you some on the end of your wand here. And the thing is, you put a coat on both faces, both surfaces that you want to glue together. And you got to let it sit for about 5 minutes and let it dry. I guess I can smell toluene, so I assume that you're letting the toluene evaporate. And but once you stick the two surfaces together, they are stuck together. There is no pulling them apart. So, you know, you have to wait about 5 minutes, but hey, that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. Okay, I've only got 10% battery power, so I need to move on this. So, gonna get started. Well, there it is. I've got to go charge the battery, and I'll be back, and we'll clean these edges up and burnish this edge. And then we're ready to stitch. See you in a little while. Okay, so we've got the holes all cut now, and so now begins the process of stitching. And boy, I'll tell you what, I sure would like to tool something on here, but I honestly really don't know even how to begin that process. So I don't know, I'm going to think about it while I'm doing the stitching, and maybe I'll come up with something that we can maybe test out or something. Okay, so I'm going to get this back in the vise and move the camera again, and we'll start the stitching. Okay, everyone, here is the sheath that I made, and I told you I was going to do some tooling practice and then maybe come back and show you some stuff, but man, I really messed this thing up, so I'm basically have to just trash this thing. You can see there I just did terrible with it. So I remade the sheath. So now I'm back to where I started from, but the downside was I forgot to record me etching that our symbol into the leather. These are Norse letters, RTF for Rocky Top Forge. And so I guess what I'm going to do now is just I'm going to take a little bit of leather dye, and I'm going to dye this, and we will be done. I'll have to do a test fit here. Probably should have done that before I started the dye, but I think the knife will fit. So this is a gel dye, and we have gotten to where we just really like it. We use it almost exclusively now, and it kind of puts a kind of an antique finish on it, and I really like that look. And so finish this baby up here, then we'll do a little wipe off here. Check it out. Okay, now let me get an old rag here. there it is. Now the RTF doesn't stand out very well, but what I might do is I might edge coat that, those letters. I don't know, have to think about that. Some of the leather I used had some imperfections in it, but since it's my sheath, I didn't want to waste the leather, so it's a great use of the leather. So just continue the staining. Okay, I have to get a little bit more out here. Getting close to supper time. I'm getting a little bit hungry, so I'm trying to hurry up and finish this. I'm not sure what in the world we're going to be having for supper. I sure would like to have a mess of fresh fish to eat tonight. Wouldn't that be good? If it's pretty this week and everything works out, John and I are probably going to sneak off one afternoon and go fishing. We'll bring the GoPro along and see if we can get some content to at least include maybe in a as part of a video, maybe not a video by itself, but maybe as a part of a video. And so okay, so now I just have this right up here at the top to go. All right, now, so there's the sheath, and it's when you rub this dye off, this gel, it's pretty much dry. It's got a little bit of dampness to it that it needs to, cure or whatever, but it's pretty much ready to rock. Yeah, it seems to wash off your hands pretty easy too. So, okay, let's see here. Let's put this in, get a look at it, see what she looks like. So there it is, for better or for worse. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I could have just remade the thing and not said anything, but that's kind of against John and mine and John's way. We don't like to try to pull the wool over your eyes, so to speak. But there it is. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day, and please consider subscribing if you have not. Share our name with other people, and like us. Thank you very much. See ya.